So good morning and welcome everyone to this session, Life's Two Truths, holding celebration and mourning in our hearts. And we're very happy to have you here. Before I start, I'd like to acknowledge the original custodians of the lands where I'm calling in from on the east coast of Australia, the Gumbaynggirr people, and I pay my respect to these original custodians and to their elders, past and present. And this beautiful land where I live, where the mountain meets the oceans, has been witness to mourning and celebration for many, many years. You know, ceremonies, stories, and songs for tens of thousands of years. So, mourning and celebration, the expression of grief and of joy. Today I was walking around the headland and asking, how is mourning and celebration showing up in this moment for me? Thoughts of my dad come to mind. He lives next door here, and just mourning his incremental loss of memory of independence, at the same time celebrating how, together, particularly as a family, that we're meeting them. So just really holding that as I was walking. So today we're going to explore this a little bit further, how we hold mourning and celebration in our hearts. Also give you an experiential taste of the practices, the connections and conversations that are really the heart of our program, celebrating this precious life, honest conversations about death and dying. So the session will include a little bit about Chani and my journey in this work, but also a guided reflection on the topic of celebration and mourning. There'll be breakout rooms to connect and share with one another, and also some information about the program that starts in March. There'll also be time at the end for your questions. And so I'd like to now introduce to you Chani Grieve.
Very warm hello to all of you. It's lovely to be here with you. I just had such a good feeling about us gathering together this morning, and really appreciate you all making the time in our busy and wild lives. So I would like us to start just with a very brief grounding practice meditation, just to help us all arrive a little bit from whatever we've been doing up to now. So please just make yourselves comfortable in case you are not already. And feel welcome to close your eyes if you would like to, or just look away from your screen. Just really make your body as comfortable as it can be. And as you start to do that, just actually feeling your body, noticing your body, noticing how is your body this morning? What are you sitting on? What are you resting into? And just noticing sensations of aliveness in your body, signs of life. So the movement of breath, weight, contact with the ground underneath you. And let's all just take a moment following Wendy's invitation to connect with the land, the particular qualities and support of the land wherever we find ourselves, in whichever part of the world, and really the nourishment and support of the land underneath us, and how that lives in our bodies. So just noticing how you are feeling this morning, how it is to be here, entering into this meeting of new friends, old friends, friends yet to be made, perhaps. And just, yeah, acknowledging what you're bringing here. Like, how are you today? What are you navigating in your life circumstances right now? Connecting with what it was that really inspired you to join us for this meeting. What was it, or what is it that's really bringing you here? What are your questions and curiosities? What are the sort of threads that you're following in your life? What are you open to learning or receiving? And also, what are you bringing to share or offer just through your presence? So again, just noticing your body, your breath, your heart, your whole self, and really making a generous space for all of that to be here with us this morning. Even the bits we find uncomfortable or maybe don't like. A quality of friendliness. Now just please gently open your eyes if they are closed, and yeah, noticing the screen in front of you and these other human beings that have also come here to explore together, and the gift of that, the gift of our togetherness. So let's just all take a breath together. Beautiful. So I hope we all feel a little more present. Zoom and computer awkwardness notwithstanding. There's always some of that. Yeah. I just invite you through the course of the session, you're feeling into yourself, and you're also connecting with Wendy and I, and also each other. And yeah, just invite you to sort of softly find your way with that as best you can. So very warm welcome again to all of you, and for those of you who just slipped in while we were doing that little practice, welcome. So we would like to just take a few minutes to introduce ourselves more fully. Some of you we know, some of you we don't know. So we'd love to just share a little bit with you about what brings us to this work, what we find inspiring about it, and why we keep doing it. So Wendy, I would love to ask you, I think you told me you offered your first funeral 27 years ago. Which is an extraordinary thing. And so, yeah, we'd love to hear just how this work has impacted you and informed and inspired your life.
Thanks, Chani. Yes, so I became a celebrant 28 years ago nearly, and my first funeral ceremony was actually for a friend who died of breast cancer. And she called me to say that she was planning her funeral. We'd actually both been home birth midwives together in our early 20s, and we'd also birthed our children at home. So it was quite a natural progression for her to then be wanting a home death. But this was a first for me. I'd had a little bit of contact with death. One of my friends had died in a car accident, so I'd not been intimately involved with that. But this was new. This was me being involved, and she was preparing for her palliative care and her death at home. And I remember the moment I walked into her lounge area, and she was very frail, and she was writing cards for her. She had 4 very young children, so she was wrapping presents and writing them cards. It was honest, it was raw. And for me, it was the first time in this sort of role. I'd been doing wedding celebrancy for a while, so I'd had a little bit of the celebrancy, but this was different. And I remember just opening for guidance to be able to support them. They had a 4-day vigil, which was also something that was quite beautiful and very moving for me. And I also had to be very aware of the practicalities of what this all meant in terms of holding space and creating safety for people. Yet the peace and the naturalness of what it was to sit quietly with her body was very sacred. I can still feel that experience within me. After we had the vigil at home, there was an intimate family ceremony with the coffin, open coffin in their lounge room, and a week later there was a memorial ceremony. So this was my introduction. It was very immersive. It was about listening to what my friend and her family wanted. And it was listening to my inner guidance and really connecting in with how we mourn and how we celebrate and how we hold that space for both. And I believe we all have this wisdom, and often it's just being put into situations like this or having conversations that can open us to this wisdom. So naturally, this influenced many of my funeral ceremonies over the years, both the alternative, at home death funerals, but also the more traditional ceremonies that I do quite a lot of. What I noticed was it really helps me to bring this realness and presence to what families want. So it's been very varied, and I look forward to sharing some of those stories over the next 6 months if you join the program. But let's come forward a few years to when you, Chani, and I worked together doing this Year to Live program in Bellingen. We followed a program which is A Year to Live by Stephen and Andrea Levine. And after that program, I started hosting them at home and bringing a lot of my compassionate communication or nonviolent communication practices in, my mindfulness practices. And what I noticed there was just how that increased my capacity to have these difficult conversations with families and how we navigate our fears and how we meet them, and fears in other people, our concerns. So yeah, we co-facilitated over these last 4 years. Chani and I started the program together as well. So that's been really beautiful. And I've also started to bring the mourning and celebration circles into my community here and also online. Within my funeral work, it's been quite extraordinary inviting people to have these smaller, intimate ceremonies with their families to hold the mourning and celebration. So that's been a really beautiful journey as well. 2 years ago, I was given an opportunity to engage a little more deeply with this work that I've been travelling for the last nearly 3 decades, and I got ovarian cancer. I am fully recovered now, but that was another journey that took me deeper into how do I hold mourning and celebration in every moment, because there were times when I was in a lot of physical pain and it hurt and I was mourning, but there was also so much to celebrate. I really feel it wasn't a mistake. Like, I got cancer, I was healthy, seemingly healthy, fit, I was meditating, doing yoga, eating well. It was like, and I got cancer. And that capacity for me to be present was such a gift to me, and it was a gift to my family. Yes, and just gave me a deeper understanding of what it is to come to that edge. It was interesting, when I got my diagnosis, I came back home to my beautiful place here, and I remember walking outside going, wow, like everything seemed so much richer and fuller, and just how alive I was. And that was not knowing yet what the outcome was to be. So it's really stayed with me, this joy of living, but also recognizing the importance of really honoring the hard parts as well. I think I'll sort of close it there. But what about you, Chani? When did you feel drawn to this work?
It's a good question. I don't know the precise moment in time, but as you were speaking, and yeah, I've been reflecting that when I was about 16, one of my best friend's older sister died in a motorbike accident. So I was in high school, obviously very suddenly and tragically. And they had her body at home for a week after she died before the funeral. And that was my first experience seeing a dead body. And I just remember, like, speaking of mourning and celebration, that house was so full of both. And like you described, Wendy, the peacefulness that sort of surrounded it, like it was devastating. And there were many, many, many tears and the shock of the loss. And there was this beautiful celebration and honoring of this incredible young woman who just, died really too soon. But the opportunity to see her body and be with her, they just said, would you like to go and sit with Isabel? And I was like, I'm not sure, but I did. And I'm so glad that I did. So looking back, I feel like that experience had a huge impact on me, that it was possible, that death is difficult and it can also be really beautiful. And it can really draw out some amazing parts of us as human beings, and our ability to sort of connect and really be there for and with one another in difficult times. So that was really, really powerful. Reading Stephen Levine's book, maybe 15 years ago now, was also very impactful. And I think it was my meditation teacher kind of posing a similar question, like, if you knew that you only had a year to live, what would you be doing differently? Would you be doing anything differently? And I really took that question on. I've really worked with that question a lot now over many, many years. And I mean, it's good to remind myself, because it's still a really, really useful question. Because the fact is, we don't know, whether we're going to die today or in a year, or who knows. But that ability to think, what is it that I want to be able to say that I've said or done when I die? And what sort of changes do I need to put in place now? So it clarifies everything so quickly, doesn't it? It really tells us what's actually really important. My lovely ex-partner had this wonderful phrase, you have to keep the most important thing the most important thing. And even just asking that, what is the most important thing? And am I living my life being true to that? Or are there things that I need to sort of refine and change and make adjustments? So it's given me a lot of courage, I think, to make difficult choices, but sort of following this deeper wisdom, like you say, Wendy, the wisdom that knows how to live life and what it needs to do to live a life well. So yeah, I just appreciate this work so much, because it's full of continual reminders to not take things for granted, and to keep questioning, keep investigating. So thank you. Thank you for your listening. Like, I can really feel the quality of listening from you all. It's really, really beautiful. And as much as we would love to hear all of your stories too, and of course, if you do join the program, there'll be an opportunity to share much more of that. But for now, let's just take another breath together, just letting what we've shared land. And notice what's alive in you now, maybe what that has sparked in you, memories or experiences or inspirations or whatever.
Thank you, Chani. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So we're going to invite you into a guided reflection around this topic of mourning and celebration. In the words of the teacher and writer Francis Weller, he writes, "Grief and love are sisters. Grief and love are sisters, woven together from the beginning. Their kinship reminds us that there is no love that does not contain loss, and no loss that is not a reminder of the love we carry for what we once held close. What is it to mourn? What is it to mourn? How do we know that we're mourning? Maybe you might be mourning the death of someone you love. Maybe you're mourning the change in a relationship that was close to you, or the loss of a job, or a falling out with a friend. Maybe a fight with your children, your neighbours, or maybe it's mourning what's happening around the globe at the moment. How do we know that we're mourning? What does it feel like to mourn? And what is it to celebrate? How does celebration feel in your body? Maybe that's gratitude or a contentment. What is it to celebrate? And it might be something simple like the sound of a magpie, or a new bud on your plant, or it might be a new opportunity as one door closes and another one opens. How do you know when you feel celebration? Yesterday, I conducted a memorial ceremony down here on the beach, and there was mourning, there was deep sadness at having to say farewell. And there was also celebration of the love, and celebration in some ways that this path of suffering had now ceased. At other ceremonies I've conducted, the celebration and mourning can be quite sort of entangled and confused. I had one lady say to me last week, is it okay that I feel happy again? Like she'd been living with her partner's illness for so many years. There was a really strong sense of relief and that she now had freedom. Is that okay? How we hold celebration and mourning is often a very complex relationship. But as Frances Weller pointed to, this mourning and celebration are companions on our life journey. Each moment, each in-breath and out-breath. In any moment, we might be uplifted by how beautiful, say, the sky is, the sense of belonging. But in the next moment, sometimes the same moment, someone might say something that upsets you, or something doesn't quite go the way you wanted. And as we know, this is life unfolding. And how do we hold these two truths of life? How do we hold them in our hearts? So in a moment, we're going to invite you to go into a breakout room and to meet one of our friends here. And I'm going to invite you to share one thing that you're mourning. And we'll take turns. So you'll be in pairs. So the first person will just, a sentence or two sentences. What are you mourning? It won't be the whole story. It's just, less than a minute to say, what are you mourning? And then the other person will share what they are mourning. And then we'll come back to the first person. And what are you celebrating? And then the second person will share what they're celebrating. And it's good to take a breath in between each sharing. So sort of take that breath. And as you're listening, listen with a sense of curiosity, a sense of mindful presence, just really opening to listening. And notice if your mind wanders or wants to fix, or suddenly, oh, I've got an idea. Oh, I've got some advice I'd like to give you. Oh, I know just that thing. Watching all our habitual responses and just come back to listening, listening to what the person's saying. And if something quite surprises you in what they're saying, maybe just sort of regulate yourself by placing your hand over your heart or taking a breath, becoming aware of your body. It's really important to take care. And in that regard, sharing what you're mourning, maybe something not heavyweight, but not lightweight either, but something in the middle that's sort of safe for us to share in the group setting. So we'll stay in silence when we're listening, not commenting on others' sharings. When you've finished, you can just say thank you, take a breath together, and then the next person will speak. So if it was Chani and I, for example, I might share that I am really mourning my dad's loss of mental capacity as his dementia comes in. And, really noticing yesterday when I took him to the doctor how hard it was for him to be in that space. And then I might take a breath there, anywhere between about a minute's sharing. And then I'd take a breath, and then Chani would share what she's mourning. Once Chani's finished, she might say, thank you. We'll take a breath. And then I'd come back and I'd say, what am I celebrating? And in this moment, when I'm thinking of my dad, I'm celebrating just his sense of gratitude and care, his humor. He's so funny, and his capacity to pull his socks up, as he says. Just got to pull my socks up and get on with it. So, there's that sort of side as well. And then I would say thank you. And then Chani would share her celebration. So we're going to be in the breakout rooms for about 6 minutes. So you've got a hello, who's going first moment, and you might want to say where you're calling in from, and then share your mourning, decide who goes first. They'll share their mourning. Second person will share their mourning. Celebration. Is there anything else, Chani, you need to mention?
Just that if you finish, we'll send a little reminder halfway so that you know how much time you've got. And if you do finish before the time's up, you can either just sit quietly together in each other's presence, or you can just come back to the main room and Wendy and I will be here rather than go into any kind of conversation. So we just want to keep the space around what people share.
And thanks, Chani, and also the understanding that what you share is confidential. Just really holding that close, that these are our stories that we wish to hold close. So really appreciating that trust and respect.
Just take a breath together just to reorient to the whole group with the feelings and echoes of what was just shared in your little pair. And this is a practice we do a lot in the Celebrating This Precious Life program. We have lots of opportunities to go into little pods and to really listen to one another. And then there's always an opportunity to come back to the whole group, and for anybody who would like to, just to share anything about how that experience was. You don't have to share specifics or details, but, just what was it like to listen to somebody in that way, or to be listened to. For some of us, that's familiar, and for other people, it's quite a new experience, the generosity of listening that can take place. So we just want to open up the space for anybody, maybe 2 or 3 people, if you would like to, just to share any reflection on how that experience was for you, around sharing this universal and yet very personal experience, isn't it, of mourning and celebration. So if anybody feels that they would like to do that, please just unmute yourself and feel free to speak. And if you would prefer, I think I've opened up the chat. You could just pop a few words into the chat, sort of descriptive words or reflective words of just how was that experience for you? So anyone's welcome to share. Zoe.
I found that when there was someone who was really present to listen, I was able to touch into something that was happening now and in the present that I hadn't actually been truly aware of. So really appreciate the space of someone listening to actually even find what it is. Yeah, gratitude for that.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, it's a real
I'm
gift.
happy to share, if that's okay.
Who's that? I can't say. Oh, Noni, there you are.
I just want to thank Maggie for her generosity, because I actually spoke too long, and it didn't give her much time. And I just wanted to say I appreciated her generosity for listening for a long period to me, and I hope that she didn't feel put out by not having as much time to share. But I was listening intently when she did.
Thank you, Noni.
I might just add that it was really interesting experience, though, to speak in a short period of time, and how actually really powerful it was, Noni. So it was very succinct, and like I really like the combination of the mourning and then the celebration. But just having a short amount of time, it was just somewhere inside of me just went straight to what was happening. So it all turned out for the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie.
Hi, hi, it's Chris here.
Hey, Chris.
Hi, Chani. Yeah, what it in reflection on sharing with Simone, I recognize there's an element of trust that makes this experience more or less real, and I was being listened to, but I have to go somewhere in myself to recognize whether I feel that I'm being listened to. And you know, that's digging into my own honesty and my own curiosity and my own authenticity. So at this stage, having shared my thoughts on mourning and celebration with another person who's a total stranger to me, I don't have a really clear sense as to how I was listened to. It's a question mark. It's a beginning, but it certainly isn't an epiphany moment for me. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for that honest following of your inquiry. Wonderful. I think we've probably got time for one more, if there's anybody who would like to speak. Lisa?
Hello. Just quickly, I until I voiced it to Phil, I didn't realize that what I was celebrating is because of what I'm mourning. I really didn't. I never put two and two together until I voiced it out loud. So it gave me goosebumps actually when I spoke about what I was celebrating was because of what I was mourning. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Well, I can see by the nods in the room.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for speaking that. And you get a sense, don't you, of just the diversity and the wisdom that starts to come forth when we hear other people's voices and we hear ourselves reflected in those voices, and it really helps to illuminate our own experience when we listen to others. So thank you all very much. Was there one more burning? Was there anybody else who just feels a real need? Otherwise we'll move on. Thank you so much, everyone.
Definitely, thank you. And one of the key things of our program, Celebrating This Precious Life, we really want to hold space for these conversations, because in having these conversations with each other, with these particular parameters of deep listening and really supporting each other, how do we hold our fears and our mourning and the more difficult things, and even the celebrations, how do we hold those and be listened to in a way that meets our needs for safety and trust and connection. So the program over the 7 sessions over 6 months will support honest conversations about death and dying. There will be themes each month, usually 2 or 3 themes each time we meet, and they'll be covering preparation and planning related to death and dying, the telling of stories and ideas. Obviously, I come with a wealth of stories about death and dying from the work I do. So, and that will prompt stories of yours. That we've all got this wisdom. So there'll be a place for questions, for being curious about different cultures and beliefs, because we do have people from all around the world of different understandings and different experiences. So everything is welcome. We do foster a space of safety, confidentiality, and also a place where we can have choice about what we might like to share and what we won't. There'll be practical tools. I bring quite a lot of practices from my nonviolent communication or compassionate communication programs and mindfulness. And of course, Chani also brings her experiences from her Feldenkrais and Movement from the Heart programs. All the gatherings will be recorded for accessibility. So if you aren't able to make the 2.5-hour session, and there's always a break in the session, so we do sort of give a bit of room for movement, they are recorded. There are prompts that we send out between each month. These are all optional to do, but the people who do them have found that it will take them deeper into the conversations. And that can include links to podcasts, it includes meditations and reflections. We've just started up an alumni program where people who have done this program in the past will be invited to connect once a year, sort of like a big get together, and we'll share some practices there. There's also a Facebook forum and a WhatsApp group. So there's lots of ways you can connect outside of the sessions. Was there anything else you wanted to add to that, Chani?
I don't think so. I think it might just be good to see if other people have any questions about the program. I noticed, Helen just asked, will the meetings be face-to-face or online? We would love to meet face-to-face. You're in, where did you say? Mooney Beach. And I'm in New Zealand, so that's not really possible. So this is a,
It is an online program, to answer your question. It's an online program, but Helen, I am just going to plug, we do have face-to-face online, face-to-face mourning and celebration circles in this area. I will be sending out a link. My next one here at home is in March. So if anybody's interested in the face-to-face programs here in Gumbanga country, which is near Coffs Harbour, you're very welcome to attend. I've also got some dear friends hosting them. Today I'm going to one in Boambi East, which is just half an hour south of where I live. So M writes, is there flexibility around being able to join the morning sessions if unable to attend all evenings and vice versa? I think there were a few people who did swap over programs last time, but we do prefer that you commit to one program and that's your main pod, if you like, so you really connect to the people there. But yes, there is a little bit of flexibility there.
And just in case people didn't know that, there's 2 programs that run concurrently. So one is on a Monday evening, and that's just with Wendy. So that's often good for people in Australia and Europe.
In Europe, yes.
Yeah, and then there's one on, it's a bit late for me, possibly for others in New Zealand. So there's one on Friday morning, which is better for Kiwis and people in the States. So we sort of get people from all over, depending on what time zone works for you.
So they are separate programs, but they are the same program. And as Chani said, Monday evenings I will host on my own, and Friday mornings will be with Chani. What's the difference between your program and the Year to Live? We don't follow the book anymore. This program has got a lot more compassionate communication practices in it. It's got some of the self-empathy practices, offering empathy. So we've really brought it in to make it, particularly in a group setting, a lot more trauma aware and creating safer spaces for having the sharings. Also, it does move a little bit away from some of the belief structures that were sort of threaded through that book. It's a beautiful book, and we wanted to open it up a little bit more to be a secular program. Thanks, Jude. Any other questions? And just to come back to that, Jude, and some of the practices do come from the book A Year to Live, like the awareness of senses, but both Chani and I have modified that given the history of our own practices and information.
Wendy, I've got a question for you.
Yes, yes, Nani. Lovely to see
you. You too. You shared a great quote earlier, not as such a quote, but just something you were saying as you were going through about mourning and celebration are something on our life's journey. What was the word there that I've missed? Can you remember that, what you said there? It was just really...
companions.
Companions, thank you.
Companions, yes. We journey. I remember the first time I did a practice from the Ongo Everyday Nonviolence program that I guide. It's a program written by Catherine Cadden and Jessie Weens-Chu. And the whole practice started with a walking meditation. And it was like being aware of the in-breath and then the out-breath. And it really, just speaks to me of how we carry them in every breath, in every moment, these companions of life. Yeah. And I like what Frances Weller says, that kinship between them.
I like that you use that particular example of breathing in and breathing out, because to me, that gives me a sense of holding on and letting go. And they have to be together. They go together. I mean, that's the process of breathing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Nani. Thank you. Any other questions you might have?
Valerie.
Valerie.
Oh, you just need to unmute yourself, Valerie.
Thanks. Having had a quick look just now at the event, will there be an email that summarizes all the sessions so I can easily see which the dates are in that period?
Yeah, definitely. So after this session, we'll get the recording together. We'll put all the key details in a follow-up email so that you have those for really easy reference.
Thanks. That'll make it feasible to check if it's feasible.
Exactly. Very good. Thank you. Somebody asked me, is it very spiritual? Like, is it a very woo-woo course? I thought that was a really interesting question, And like Wendy said, we have people coming from all sorts of countries, all sorts of cultures, all sorts of backgrounds, and we really endeavour to make it a very open space. This is not about any particular viewpoint or belief system or anything. This is about posing the questions to all of us so that we get to do our own reflection and to also look at, because we often come with sort of beliefs or ideas that we haven't even necessarily thought about or examined. But then when the question is posed, we have this opportunity to go, well, hang on a second, what do I think? What do I think is going to happen to me after I die? What kind of funeral would I like to have? And what do I need to tell my loved ones about what my wishes are? All these kinds of things, that we often don't make the time for. That's really what this program is about. It's just making the time and the space to give us the opportunity to find out for ourselves, really, and to listen to what other people are discovering as well.
And actually, Chani, it's also just a note to say this is not a death doula training workshop, and this is not a funeral celebrant training workshop. You will learn things about that maybe they would have learned, but it's not that. This is a personal exploration. It's about a community coming together to share stories and understandings and go, wow, really? Okay, and we get to look at all these different ways of being.
Kind of brings up a question for me.
Rachel.
If I am interested in or wanting to explore grief in a more general sense, like different, like Francis Willis says, different gateways to grief. So if it's not so much about death and dying, like I'm definitely, that's an inquiry for me too, but there's also these other gateways to grief that are probably more relevant to me right now. Is this going to be a good place to do that exploration, or is it very death and dying focused? I mean, I know that's the title of the workshop, so I'm guessing it is.
I can speak from, so where we start in the program is really giving us foundational support practices on, what is it I'm bringing into the room, and that will cover your response to grief. It's not a grief workshop. Yes, there are definitely programs that will look more deeply into grief. And yet, how can we not bring grief into this conversation about death and dying and how we are with other people's grief? And so it's really giving us practices that we can apply into our everyday lives that will support you with that. So it really, it certainly helped me with my own grief, and naturally in my work with people. I work a lot with people in grief. Often grief brings conflict. So we'll give you some tools that you can then also support those conversations, those ones. Did you want to add anything to that, Chani?
No, I think you've covered it.
Lovely, thanks. Does that answer your question, Rachel?
Yes, thank you very much.
Beautiful, thanks. Thank you for asking.
So if anybody does think of questions after after today, like, oh, I wish I'd asked that, or I'm not sure about that, like, please, in the follow-up email, you'll have our contact details. And so you can feel welcome to reach out to either of us anytime to ask questions about the program and whether it's feels like a good fit for you.
Yeah, so thank you so much for coming. Thank you for your time and your presence and really your engagement. I can feel the sense of presence here. We'd love to welcome you to further conversations, and I'd like to close with a poem, and there will be poetry throughout our sessions as well. And it's a poem called See Paris First. And actually, this is a very interesting poem for me to read at the moment. My brother-in-law, who lives in Paris, is currently in palliative care and will say farewell to us any day now. So this is a beautiful poem, and I honour it to Jonathan. I dedicate it to Jonathan. See Paris First by M. Truman Cooper. Suppose that what you fear could be trapped and held in Paris. Then you would have the courage to go everywhere in the world, all the directions of the compass open to you, except the degrees east or west of true north that lead to Paris. Still, you wouldn't dare put your toes smack dab on the city limit line. In fact, you're not really willing to stand on a mountainside miles away and watch the Paris lights come up at night. Just to be on the safe side, you decide to stay completely out of France. But then danger seems too close, even to those boundaries, and you feel the timid part of you covering the whole globe again. You need the kind of friend who learns your secret and says, see Paris first. And in so many ways, this is what we feel the program offers. I certainly know that my work in this field has brought me a greater increased capacity to enjoy life, and we'd like to share that with you. So thank you so much for joining us today. And Chani, did you want to say anything before we close?
Yeah, just deep gratitude to all of you for your time and your genuine presence and your heartfelt questions, even if they didn't get verbalized. They're all part of the atmosphere. It's really appreciated. And, you know, obviously we would love to see you all inside of the program, but even if we don't, we really hope that this session has felt valuable for you, that it's helped you contact things that feel important to you, and that you take that with you in whatever way feels joyful and helpful in your life. So thank you all very much.
Yes, may you hold celebration and mourning with your hearts in a beautiful way. So thank you. And bye for now.
Have a wonderful day, everybody.